Shiv Seniks are now taking to the streets of Maharashtra to protest against the rebels led by Eknath Shinde. How will this battle finally end, with Eknath Shinde now claiming to be leading his own Shiv Sena, the Balasaheb Thackeray Shiv Sena? I'm Barkhadat, you're with the Mojo story, and we continue to keep a keen eye on the political developments with a very, very distinguished panel. Let's bring them up now as we introduce our guest today to decode the latest twist and turn of a political script, the last chapter of which is still awaited. Let's introduce our guests on the program today. We are joined by Tejas Mehta, who is, of course, a political analyst and a journalist who spent a lot of time in Maharashtra on the ground. Tejas, great to see you. Also joining us is a senior journalist from Maharashtra, the editor of Sakal Media, Samrat Phadnis. Thank you so much, Samrat. It's great to see you again. Shantanu Gupta, political analyst, commentator, biographer of 2 books on Yogi Adityanath, is with us. Namaskar, Shantanu. Great to see you. Sanjay Jha, lap-sacked congressperson. I love introducing Sanjay because it's the introduction I can play the most sort of variations with, and he sportingly smiles at all of it. Is also joining us from Mumbai. And last but never the least is our very favorite Yashwant Deshmukh, psephologist and the man who leads See Voter. So great to see all of you. And I must start, of course, as usual, with our Maharashtra experts, our friends from Maharashtra with their ear to the ground. Samrat, let's start with you. What is very clear is that Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena is now hoping to look at legal ambiguities to hold on to power. Priyanka Chaturvedi, whose clip we'll play from in a moment, told me that there is only one Sena, the Uddhav Thackeray Sena, and even if 2/3 rebellion has taken place, that group will have to merge with another party for it to count. Do you believe this legality is going to help Uddhav Thackeray survive?
No, the problem is that they are actually trying to pressurize Eknath Shinde group. There is, I don't know, others can actually put light, but there is no that kind of provision. Is Eknath Shinde, before collecting a set of 40 MLAs, have thought of this. Definitely he has given a thought of this, whether we should need to merge in any other party or not. So it was clear that he was just waiting to collect 37 MLAs. Today he issued a note where 39 Shiv Sena MLAs had a signature, and nobody yet claimed that this signature does not belong to me or it's forced. So it is just a pressure tactics. They are trying. The Shiv Sena hold by Uddhav Thackeray actually saying that okay, Shiv Seniks will come on road, they will start vandalizing offices, and now you have to care for your families. So it, at one side they're trying to pressurize using legal terms, and on second thought they are also pressurizing through random vandalism and riots. So this is the situation in Maharashtra at present.
Samrat, one of the points that the Shiv Sena is trying to make now is that the Shiv Sena is not only about its MLAs and its MPs, it is in the end about its Sainiks. In other words, about its street power, about its cadre. And that is obviously this kind of ugly display of brute force that we have seen on the streets of Maharashtra today. My question to you is exactly this. You know, Priyanka Chaturvedi told us that Uddhav Thackeray, who had moved out of the official chief minister's residence, would be going back in. They have also decided to brazen it out. In other words, no resignations by anybody yet. How do you see this ending? Do you still think that Uddhav Thackeray can use technicalities and legal sort of loopholes to regain control of his party?
He will definitely try to regain control of the party. But the situation we have to understand is that the number of MLAs who are rebelling is not a small number. It is 39. So 39 MLAs were elected by the Shiv Seniks only. It was not, those MLAs were not elected by Congress or NCP. So it was a clear-cut mandate in 2019, and then Shiv Seniks elected these 39 MLAs. If you had seen the other pictures, there are 3-4 protests by the rebel MLAs also happened in Maharashtra. So they are protesting peacefully, but all of a sudden it may turn violent. That is the issue or threat is being looming over Maharashtra, because Shiv Seniks have clear Shiva Sainiks owned by Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray has clear mandate that they should go and vandalize the offices of rebel MLAs. But rebel MLAs still waiting. Their cadre is still waiting. Their followers are still waiting. They started protest, but peaceful protest today in Maharashtra. Those kind of 3-4 protests already happened this afternoon. So I doubt if only one sort of Shiva Sena owned by Uddhav Thackeray is at present have that kind of power in Maharashtra.
So, on that note, in fact, the interesting question that arises is that if this sort of street violence gets worse, there could, of course, then, of course, we talk about imposing presidents who rule. Anything could happen. I mean, it raises all sorts of permutations and combinations. And before I open this up, I want to just play out Sanjay Raut. Sanjay Raut has been a powerful but a very controversial face through this. In fact, some of the rebels have also expressed their anger with Mr. Raut, who has always warned about the brute force that could be unleashed by the Shiv Seniks. Listen in to Sanjay Raut's latest statement.
बात ऐसी है, देखो
गृहमंत्री और मुख्यमंत्री की तरफ से
आप महाराष्ट्र से बाहर है भाई, आप महाराष्ट्र में आकर ये बात कर लीजिए। किसी की सुरक्षा नहीं निकाली है, ये जिम्मेदारी हमारी नहीं है। लोगों का गुस्सा ज़रूर है, अब तक गुस्सा जो है उसका विस्फोट नहीं हुआ है, लेकिन हो सकता है। अभी मेरे पास सांगली के लोग आए, हमारे पूछना चाहते हैं कि हम लोग क्या करें, अगर ये लोग भड़क गए तो आग लग जाएगी। मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, लेकिन सबको बोला है संयम रखो। मुझे विश्वास है जब ये विधायक मुंबई में आ जाएंगे तो हमारे पाले में आ जाएंगे।
भड़क गए तो आग लग जाएगी. Tejas, we have beginnings of that in the images that we're seeing of the vandalism today. Eknath Shinde's son's house among those vandalized. Politically, what are the consequences of the Sainiks sort of taking to the streets? Obviously, it's Uddhav Thackeray trying to say the MLAs may be with you, but the man on the street is with us. Tejas.
Barka, if you remember, not in the last maybe 5 years, but before that, we always heard a line from the Shiv Sena, especially when they were in the opposition. We will take care of it in Sena style. This is really, the Shiv Sena, typically the Shiv Sena. And while many believe it had metamorphosized from when it was under Balasaheb Thackeray to now Uddhav Thackeray, I mean, the cadre really has not changed that much. I mean, these visuals today are proof of what really the anger is. And even the reasons why the split is taken place is it's very obvious that what the senior leadership was thinking in the direction they are taking the party into, and what's really happening with the cadre and 40 MLAs almost was completely different. And I think these, the ideological movement which has taken place because they joined the MVA, I think it's very reductionist to just simply say that Uddhav Thackeray was not really taking care of his MLAs. He was focusing all the while on the NCP. I think there are many other reasons why these MLAs are really wanting to jump ship in such a way, and that to 38. This was almost impossible to believe, because whenever we talk about the Sena, one thing everybody takes for granted is their loyalty towards the Thackeray's, and that's something which they're ready to die for also, be it Balasaheb Thackeray or Uddhav. The Thackeray's are all that matter, and if they have revolted in such a large number, it's pointless just simply blaming the BJP also, because you cannot manage so many MLAs and try and this horse trading or buy everybody at the same time. It's extremely difficult. So there is genuine discontent that was known, that and the last straw was really that Uddhav Thackeray reportedly, at least the belief was from the cadre and the MLAs, that the contact had really reduced what Balasaheb Thackeray used to have. So the biggest fear, which I spoke to a few of the MLAs, and the fear really they have is that what happens in the next elections, because the MVA which is currently here just now is based on a post-poll alliance. If they go to the people as NCP and the Congress as their partners, when NCP is one of their the most prominent rivals, how are they going to get the vote? And
I,
that is
I,
really
I,
troubling the Shiv Seniks.
I think that's a good point, and I think Samrat on this program had first made the point to look at everything through the Hindutva lens, his lazy analysis. The fact is that there are, Samrat, what did you say, more than 20 seats where actually there's a direct contest between the Shiv Sena and the NCP, and therefore this coalition for electoral reasons, not just ideological reasons, is a problem. Now, I want to bring in Shantanu before I go to Sanjay and Yashwant. And Shantanu, here's the question. Hindutva seems like an excuse here, and it seems like an excuse because Eknath Shinde was among the leaders who drafted or worked on drafting the common minimum program. In 2.5 years, the clashes don't seem to have been on Hindutva. The clashes seem to have been personality issues, lack of access to Uddhav Thackeray, a sense that there is a coterie around him, the usual problems that happen in many political parties. How do you see this? Where do you see it ending?
See, Barkha, I don't know where it will end. Maybe I'm sure it will end in the courts. But again, I'll disagree that the Hindutva is not one of the major elements. So there were defections in Shiv Sena before. Chhagan Bhujbal left in 1991. 2005, they have major ones. Narayan Rane with 10 MLAs and Raj Thackeray, the family stalwart, left. But I think those were exactly the individual political ambitions or equation with the leadership. But here, what I'm hearing from the ground is that if you go to polls tomorrow, if Shiv Seniks, MLAs, corporators, MPs will go to poll tomorrow, what will be their USP? What will they ask vote for? If they ask if someone wants to vote for on the Hindutva plank, they will vote for BJP. And if someone wants to vote otherwise, there is NCP and Congress. What is the typical USP a Shiv Sainik will go to ask for votes? And it's out there in public. In fact, the way the government is being run in last 2.5 years, it's a classic case study of how a government should not be run, right? Like Palghar Sadhus to Parambir Singh, Anil Deshmukh, Nawab Malik, Arnab Goswami, Kangana Ranawat, Navneet Rane. So these are the headlines the government is generating from last 2.5 years.
What about the positive headlines they generated on COVID management?
Very rarely. No, when COVID, when it reached Mumbai High Court, it quoted UP government that why don't you learn from UP government how to be prepared for the wave 3, right? That's thanks to media and people like you that though the wave were coming from Mumbai and Kerala, but the stories were only from UP. So
that's actually not true. I started my journey first in Mumbai and came back to it many times.
The proportion you can check.
And
you
the
can go
Supreme
back and
Court.
Check. Yeah, you might have done two stories just to look neutral. You might have done two stories.
I don't need to look. I don't need to look anything. My point is, it isn't. Forget me. This show is not about me. The Supreme Court, and nor is it about how the Shiv Sena handled the pandemic. You and I can have that debate at a different time. My point is something else. My point is the Supreme Court, for example, lauded the Mumbai model, Iqbal Chahal, and so on. Minhaz Merchant, a fan of the Modi government, has just written a biography on Mr. Chahal. So this is a different debate, Shantanu, and you and I can joust some other time. My question to you is quite simply this. When you say Hindutva is a factor, tell me why you think Hindutva is a factor.
I'm telling you, tomorrow if a Shiv Sainik go to ask for a vote, if I want to vote for a Hindu plank, I'll vote for BJP. If otherwise, I'll vote for NCP, Congress. Why will I tell me a reason why I will vote for Shiv Sena? There is no reason left that why I will vote for
And that is an interesting question. That I want to quickly ask Samrat, because Samrat was the first person to argue that this is not Hindutva, this is about electoral compulsions. Shantanu raises an interesting point. Uddhav Thackeray tried to recast himself as being a sort of chief minister rooted in governance, trying to build a constituency with those who typically would not have voted for either the Sena or the BJP. I think Shantanu makes an interesting point there. And therefore, today, if there was an election, would the Sainik recognize her or his party in this Shiv Sena? Samrat?
Definitely it had happened in Kolhapur North by-election. So BJP was never any number of contender in Kolhapur North, but now they are number 2. Kolhapur North is not known BJP constituency where they had garnered more than 70,000 votes, when their own local cadre is not more than 15,000 or 20,000 votes. So out of that 70,000, most of the right-wing Hindutva inclined people voted for Shiv Sena instead of MVA's candidate who actually from Congress side of the front. So definitely this shift has started happening in last 2-3 by-elections. It was clearly noted. More than that, since 84 to 2019, there was a clear political agenda of Shiv Sainik. So they used to fight against Congress, then they started to fight against Congress and NCP, then all of a sudden NCP and Congress are their friends. So they don't know what to do. So instead of fighting for the Congress and NCP's candidate, they choose to go with the BJP, and that was clearly visible in Maharashtra's all the
And,
by-elections.
and I want to take this to Yashwant now, because we have all focused on the Legislative Council elections where the cross voting happens. We have forgotten to talk about the Rajya Sabha elections right before, where the BJP does spectacularly. And that should have been the beginning of a warning sign to the coalition that something was amiss. Your tracker constantly tracks the mood. What are you picking up, if anything, in Maharashtra, Yashwant?
Maharashtra has been case of perfect contradictions all along. To who on earth 5 years back we would have ever dreamt of Shiv Sena Congress forming a government, or for that matter BJP and PDP forming a government in Jammu and Kashmir before that. So we have been going through a lot of churn. Shiv Sena, oldest ally of the BJP, has been long enough treated as a far right. It was BJP was considered right and Shiv Sena was far right. Now, going around and forming a secular alliance with Shiv Sena was completely, out of place to start with. Yes, I understand that Shiv Sena wanted to make it a point to the BJP that, we can have our constituency, we can have our chief minister without you. Point proven, understood. But beyond that, to take it to the next election, that was going to be a big disaster. It's like वो typical Bollywood picture में होता है ना कि the hero has to impress the heroine, and first goes to the second girlfriend, and then there is a jealousy, and then you come back. That sort of filmy kind of thing. But at the end of the day, आप ये सोचो ना कि हीरोइन को छोड़ करके आप उस तीसरी वैम्प के साथ में नाटक करते करते आप शादी करने तक पहुंच जाओ, then it's a disaster to happen. And that is the disaster which was bound to happen in 1.5, 2 years later, whenever the next elections come in. So I absolutely agree with whatever been said, that it was the electoral compulsion of the Shiv Sainik MLAs, because these are the people who are going on the ground and they have to contest and they have to get elected. Barkha, perfect parallel would be what we have seen for like 15 years in the Congress camp.
Yes.
Where in the CWC, all the people who were the typical strategists, the big minds of Congress, were the people who never even contested a municipality election on their own. Forget about being a member of parliament. And they were driving the strategy, while people who were winning the elections, somebody like Himanta Biswa Sarma, somebody like Jyotiradittya Scindia, somebody like whom, the story has been replicated all along. I think that same symptom creeped into Shiv Sena somewhere. Yes, they wanted to prove a point. They proved a point. Good enough. But beyond that, that prudency must have prevailed. The wisdom should have prevailed. Yeah, point prove kar liya. But our natural alliance, our natural constituency is where the BJP is. And let's go back to that and take it forward. So something has gone wrong, Barkha, there. And another thing, Barkha, that Maharashtra is no more. I in any case, never analyzed Maharashtra as a single unit. I always felt that there are two Maharashtras in there. One is Maharashtra and one is Mumbai Maharashtra. And one is non-Mumbai Maharashtra, And as we all know, Maharashtra could be a body for Shiv Sena. The Atma remains in Mumbai. Their core strength comes to Mumbai. And let's not forget that the last Mumbai elections, Shiv Sena was 84, BJP was 82. 2 seats. And BJP very, very smartly decided we will support Shiv Sena from outside so that we are not blamed for the whatever happens in the Mumbai municipality. So it is also because of that impending tough war of Mumbai, which was 3 months or 6 months down the lane before the Maharashtra election.
And that's a very important point. But there's another parallel with, or another, I would say, warning, for parties like the Congress, but any party that is family run, Sanjay, and that the family brand doesn't ensure an invincible hold over the party. Whoever forms the next government in Maharashtra or continues to form, the one thing that has happened is Uddhav Thackera's hold as a Thackeray over his party is no longer a given. Somewhere there, a lesson for the Gandhis in the Congress, as Yashwant says. But Sanjay, sitting in Mumbai, what are you expecting to happen next?
Barkha, there's one element that we also need to introduce in the discussion. I think everybody's made very valid points, which is that Uddhav and, I'm sure Uddhav, perhaps definitely not many of the other people in his party, was fully aware that the BJP was gradually swallowing its partner. End of day is very easy to say that they are both Hindutva, but remember that Maharashtra has been actually a pretty much a moderate secular leaning state, because before 2014, barring an aberration here and there, they have actually performed remarkably well. I'm talking about the Congress when it was Congress with Sharad Pawar, even after Congress and NCP. So remember, the pie is not unlimited. There was always a limited pie for the Hindutva vote. And I think what I think Uddhav Thackeray was fully aware, as I'm sure today, if you look at the experience of Nitish Kumar in Bihar, once again, BJP was weak in Bihar, but it grew on the shoulders of Nitish Kumar, and today actually dominates Nitish, which is why you're hearing a lot of turbulence out there as well. It's a matter of time before that alliance also collapses. So I think Uddhav.
But in this case, you may have a section of you may have the alliance resurrecting, not collapsing, Sanjay. In this particular case.
Barkhan. I believe that what Uddhav was doing was playing a very smart game. It's easy to say that right now it seems to have not worked. But what he was doing was also looking at an opportunity to make Shiv Sena, which was always being talked about as a hooligan party, who's going to govern? Will they ever have a chief minister? He was a dark horse. Nobody expected a member of the family who normally concentrated on the party and not in running a government to actually become a success story. I will be very frank with you. Let's look at Mumbai, okay? I agree that it was 84-82, but right now, one of the big issues for the BJP trying to attack the Shiv Sena is the BMC elections. It's a 40,000 crore municipal budget, and perhaps it has got one of the significant votes for even the 6 Lok Sabha seats. I want to make one point here. Uddhav is very popular. He's actually weaning away even democratic, liberal, pro-Congress supporters towards the Shiv Sena. So it's not as if, there was something going away from him. He was also earning a lot of points from a state that actually is not Hindutva really. So
let me take that to Shantanu, because my point would be, Sanjay, it could be that he was winning those people but not winning his cadre, right? I think that...
But Barkha, this is one point. If you look at, Yashwant can add a point there. If you look at Maharashtra's topography, actually, no one is winning all over the state. They have their own formidable bastions. I don't think the Sena's bastions would have collapsed anyway. So
I was trying to add a point. Was it you, Yashwant? Yashwant, was it you?
Yeah, I just wanted to point when I started saying that there are a lot of contradictions in so many things that are going on. One of the contradictions of that entire disconnect of Sena policy going with Congress is there. The contradiction is also that Uddhav Thackeray individually as a chief minister was not rated bad. In fact, in our tracker, he has been consistently being rated as one of the best CMs in India. He has been always in top 10 in that way. And that is a very interesting thing. So, out and out as a chief minister, he was not taken as something who is a failure or something like hated or something like that. So that's a contradiction. That's why I'm saying that when you look into the public perception, particularly of the Sena and everybody else, was that, he has gone with Congress and the NCP. That is something which they are not liking. But as a chief minister, he wasn't doing a bad job. That is, people rated him rather well. So this is something which is contradictory. I understand. Many people say, "Yaar, kya tum bolte ho? Ek taraf ye bolta." Arey bhai, main nahi bolta. Public bolti. My job is only to collect data.
And that's the point. And that's the point I was trying to actually ask of Shantanu. Tejas, I'm coming to you in a second. First, Shantanu. That personally, let's just forget the coalition for a moment. The point that Yashwant has made, that personally Mr. Thackeray was seen to be an efficient, responsive chief minister to his citizenry. That's the point Yashwant Deshmukh is making. And yet he finds himself neither in control today of his party nor in control of his government. Shantanu.
I think first I'll answer what Sanjay ji was saying, that Hindutva is not the only constituency. I think that's a little bizarre the comment to make when BJP is the largest party with 106 seats. And if you see all the rallies of Shiv Sena, there is no rally of Shiv Sena where the Shiv Sainiks, so-called Shiv Sainiks, are not holding the placard of Narendra Modi along with Uddhav Thackeray. So they won on Narendra Modi's plank. In every rally, they are also saying Uddhav Thackeray invoking Modi. And we are saying no, Hindutva is only a little constituency. I think that's bizarre to comment. I think I think the kind of headlines sitting in Delhi, Uddhav is generating. I'm sure Yashwantji's tracker is far more technical than my anecdotal evidences. Is that your police commissioner is absconding? When last time we heard a police commissioner absconding? When last time we heard that that a minister and police commissioner are involved in a vasuli of a famous industrialist of India? So the kind of headlines is generating from arresting a renowned journalist to breaking the house of a Bollywood actress, and also nothing much happening overall in Maharashtra. The ranking wise, Corona, I'll still beg to differ. All the numbers in Corona were Maharashtra was not among top 10.
Okay,
So
can I ask you a political
I
question,
disagree that
Shantanu ji?
Maharashtra is
Shantanu
generating
ji.
good headlines.
Okay. Shantanu, I have a political question to you, and then I come back to our Maharashtra experts. Here's my question to you. Suppose the BJP and the Sena do patch up. They go back to the relationship they had. Do you think the same Uddhav Thackeray that you've criticized, if he were willing, जैसे बीच में लगा था, if he were willing to leave the coalition and join hands with the BJP, would he be today palatable to the BJP, or has he become personally unpalatable? In your estimation,
though we have seen in the competitive politics of last decade or so, I think any marriages are possible. But now I think so much water has flown between the relationships, so many statements at the very fundamental level has been made. I doubt this can be patched up now. So that's why I think now we are hearing Shiv Sena Balasaheb Thackeray, a new version, which is maybe new way of whoever is instigating it, maybe BJP or Eknath Shinde himself. That's a better marriage to happen than the original Thackeray family.
It is fascinating, Tejas. Let me bring you and Samrat in now. Tejas, go ahead. Eknath Shinde declares Shiv Sena Balasaheb, but it isn't that easy. Who will get the party symbol? Will these 16 MLAs be suspended? Once they are, the others are not likely to resign. No MLA is going to resign. Therefore, the majority on the floor is not going to come down. The Sena is demanding a floor test. Between then and a floor test, anything can happen. We've all seen this drama before. Tejas?
Barkha, really the conundrum both for the BJP and the Shiv Sena is that they can't do with each other and they can't do without each other. I mean, look at the last two elections, and this is when the Modi wave was at its peak. 2014, they contested separately, and then they made a post-poll alliance. 2019, they learned the lesson and they came together, but they could not keep the alliance after that. So the question really is, even at their peak, when Mr. Modi is most popular, and Shantanu is right, and even in Shiv Sena rallies, they wanted actually, the Prime Minister to come and rally for them because he was so popular. So the point really is that even if they don't come together, does the BJP really think they can win power in Maharashtra without the Shiv Sena? That's one question. The second question is, do they really believe Eknath Shinde can win for them in this new, alliance if they form one, 38 to 40 seats? That's what they would require, somewhere around that, a comfortable majority. Can he really do that? So these are really complex questions, and nobody has really been able to do that till now. So Raj Thackeray has not been able to make his own mark, a Thackeray himself. So does Eknath Shinde have those powers? I really doubt it at this point of time.
So then basically you're talking about some kind of reconciliation, Tejas?
I'm really saying that, yes, I honestly, in the beginning, I thought that Uddhav was on board with all of this. And that, because he also is smart enough to realize that humko wapas ghar jana hai ek bar. I can't be with NCP and, Congress asking for a vote. How is it possible? It's just not possible. So I really thought that was really happening.
Sanjay's wanted to come in briefly, and then Samrat. Yeah, so you thought Uddhav orchestrated. So there are two conspiracy theories I've heard. I mean, the obvious one is the BJP is behind all this, and Phadnis has been sort of chafing since, of course, the Sena abandoned him in 2019 in an election where Shantanu reminds us the BJP was the single largest party. The other two conspiracy theories are Uddhav staged this. I don't agree with that. I mean, look at how washed out he looks. He looks beleaguered. Secondly, is the Sharad Pawar hand. Sanjay, you want to come in briefly, and then I'll go to Samrat.
Barkha, I think it is very simplistic to kind of look and compare, let's say, a Congress NCP with a Shiv Sena BJP and say there is an ideological compatibility between these four parties, two in one group and two in the other. The NCP is an offshoot of the Congress, but the Sena has always had its own individualistic, formidable presence in Maharashtra. Now, this assumption that until 2019 there was a big bromance on between Shiv Sena and BJP is itself flawed. I'll tell you why. Go back to the 2017 BMC elections, or even before. I mean, the Shiv Sena called Narendra Modi a traitor. They called him a snake. And they said he's like an anaconda who's going to swallow the Shiv Sena. In fact, when you hear Uddhav, he says, you backstab me, the question of an alliance with the BJP is out. So Shantanu is absolutely right. It's beyond, I mean, politics is the art of the possible, but we never know. But at the moment, one can confidently say that they are not coming together for a while. So the truth is that, this assumption, once again, I don't agree with Shantanu. And the point I was making was that until 2014, the Congress and the NCP, barring that time of 1995 that the BJP Shiv Sena were there, they have done really well. I maintain this point that even today, the Shiv Sena, even if Eknath Shinde were to go, I have a feeling Uddhav will retain the party. And if there were to be elections, frankly, there will be a new permutation combination. Why are we being so traditionalist and status quoist about things? That politics is dynamic, is changing. And I do believe that you will see
Okay.
a different Shiv Sena.
Let me bring in Samrat and Yashwant, and then I'll take last comments. Samrat, what is going to happen now? Do you believe that taking cover behind a very, very complicated set of legal decisions, and I think Shantanu made the point that eventually this is probably going to end up in court, and I kind of agree with him. Given that, do you believe that the MLAs who have not been sort of acted against in a disciplinary way can return to the fold? Is there still space for reconciliation within the Sena?
If they have any kind of space, definitely they will do that. See, Shiva Sena is not a practical party. They are more relying on emotions. So definitely, I believe that it will happen that MLAs, after every legal battle, winning legal battles and other thing, they will visit. They most likely they will visit Matoshri. They will make Uddhav Thackeray as an idol, as a murti of Shiva Sena, but they definitely would not like him to become active politician. That's what he has done, and that where he
And
failed.
what
So
happens to his son? What happens to his son?
he is working nicely. So there was no question of Aditya Thackeray at all. Aditya Thackeray had never praised NCP or Congress the way Uddhav Thackeray. Every time he tried to praise Congress and NCP, that was their local MLA's problem, that we cannot fight when you are actually praising my opponent. So that was their point. If this problem has solved and no other party formation happened, then this is what I see that the most likely that may happen.
Okay, Yashwant, let me bring this to you and then we'll take last comments. That means that all of this drama may not end in the kind of disruption that we think, except for the fact, and that's not a small fact, that Mr. Thackeray will become a kind of poster boy, but not the one wielding the real power, is what Samrat is actually forecasting. Yashwant? Yashwant, just unmute yourself, please. Yeah.
Sorry, Baka. So actually, I totally agree with him. I mean, I also find it very interesting to see some of the analysts going all out and saying this is the real Shiv Sena. There is a lot of gray area like that. This Shiv Sena under Uddhav Thackeray is not the same totalitarian as it used to be under Balasaheb. Done, because under Balasaheb's control, even somebody like Raj Thackeray, who was seen as the natural leader of after Balasaheb, he just could not take it away. Please try to understand that. Even Raj Thackeray, as charismatic as Raj Thackeray, could not take it away. So what is happening here, Barkha, is that I am not expecting people like Eknath Shinde or the others who are with him to take away the entire base of Shiv Sena. No. But there is one thing which even the Shiv Sena leadership has to understand. These people are there on the ground and they have even, significant chunk of their personal support. Now, without Shiv Sena, only with their personal support, can they make a political impact? Hell no. But with their small personal support plus BJP, can they make a difference? Absolutely yes. You have seen that happening in Madhya Pradesh. People who came out of the Congress camp, they carried their small personal support along with the BJP as a BJP candidate. They simply won. So, they won on a Congress ticket, they resigned, they recontested on a BJP ticket, they won, and they are in the government. So, what both the camps need to understand, first of all, if Eknath Shinde camp feels they can become the real Shiv Sena, my limited understanding says no. If Raj Thackeray could not become a real Shiv Sena, forget about you. What Uddhav Thackeray camp should understand, that they can continue as a totalitarian thing like Honorable Balasaheb Thackeray used to do. Forget about it. You are not even 1% of that kind of charisma, nowhere near that. So you need to understand that your regional Chhatrap, it's a kind of a good combination. Somebody having a regional strength and you having the Sena strength coming together. But those people with the regional strength can switch with their small support base, add the big BJP support base, and they have a winning formula. So both the camps have to understand their limitations. If they understand their limitations, then rightly said that Shiv Sainiks are basically emotional people. They are not political, calculative people. If you will look into the prudency of being on a scale, probably Shiv Sena is on extreme left and Sharad Pawar is on extreme right, thinking in that way that everything is calculation and everything is emotion. So emotion to calculation, Shiv Sena and NCP are two contrasts as far as politically speaking, as far as I see.
Okay, so before the last comments that we'll start with Shantanu, the Shiv Sena has clearly decided to dig its heels in. There is now no rumor at all about Uddhav Thackeray resigning. He's clearly decided not to do it. Though initially it looked like he was going to, he kept saying, I have my resignation in my pocket. Aap aake mujhse baat kariye, main sarkar chhodne ke liye tayar hu. Not just that, his spokespeople are now coming out and saying that he'll be moving back into his official chief minister's residence very soon. A quick excerpt from Priyanka Chaturvedi, and then we'll take last comments. Okay, the second question is, Mr. Thackeray spoke about how he's ready to, he has his resignation letter in his pocket. If the legislator had come face to face and spoken to him and said, we don't want you here, he would have quit. Let me ask you a direct question then. Is Mr. Uddhav Thackeray going to resign, or is he going to fight this till the end, legally and politically?
We are fighting this till the end. He is going to be heading back to Warsaw very soon, and I'm very confident.
So he's going back. He's going back to the chief minister's official residence from where we saw those suitcases come out.
One second. As a Shiv Sainik, we are very clear that we will ensure and put our best to curb this rebellion and ensure that whenever we need to prove a majority, we will do that on the floor of the House and the Assembly. All three political parties which are in alliance have asked for a floor test, are going to be seeking that, and we will come back as a winner, and our government will continue, is all I can say.
There are many more that Eknath Shinde is claiming he has a support of. In fact, if you look at this situation, it looks like it's, as some have said, it's not the Shiv Sena, it's now the Shinde Sena.
No, they can continue to claim what they want. Shinde Sena. There is only one political party, and that is the Shiv Sena led by Shri Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray, and that is the Shiv Sena that we are all duty bound to. Those who have gone rogue, despite getting called for a meeting and being told that they'll be suspended if they don't attend the meeting, and that is going as per the party protocol. They chose to do that, so action will be taken on the basis of having given them adequate warning.
Okay, so action will be taken. We are fighting till the finish. There is only one Shiv Sena. Shantanu, let's start with you. Clearly, two things are clear now. Mr. Thackeray is not resigning, and he is not dumping Sharad Pawar and the Congress as originally seemed to be the plan, at least not right now. How do you see this unfolding from here?
Barka, very interesting in your interview, Priyanka made sure that she says Uddhav Thackeray's name is Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray. So now, I think from now onwards, we'll see how the legacy of Balasaheb Thackeray will be invoked, be in the form of Shiv Sena Balasaheb Thackeray. And that's my original point. That's all about Hindutva. That's why everybody is invoking the name of Balasaheb Thackeray. That's point number one. Point number two, I think it's between three entities, which is the speaker or deputy speaker, governor, and the courts. I think the sequence will also matter. And I think everyone has counseled with their legal help. And that's what giving them courage or discouraging them, because Shiv Sena is giving mixed signals from last 3-4 days, leaving Varsha, Aditya Thackeray removing the minister title in his Twitter handle. Raut is coming saying maybe it can be dissolved. And now from last one day, maybe the signals are little promising from Shiv Sena's side. So I'm saying with these sequences, deputy speaker, governor, and the courts, I think in next 10 days it will unfold, I think.
And briefly, Shantanu, the point that Yashwant made, that if Raj Thackeray, who seemed to be the natural inheritor of the Balasaheb legacy, if he couldn't build a career for himself separately from the parentship, how can Eknath Shinde do it?
I'm saying, yeah, that's a valid point. But again, I don't know how much homework Raj Thackeray did before he defected, or how much homework Eknath Shinde did. Before your show started, I think someone was telling the panel that how Eknath Shinde launched this movie on Anand Dighe from last year, made a movie year back, launched this recently, and he was making this mahal from quite some time. And he's not a small leader. He was touted as the chief minister in 2019 when the MBA government was coming up. And he was a prodigy of someone like Anand Dighe, who was very close to Balasaheb Thackeray. So he's also a nobody. So it's not that if Raj Thackeray can't do anything, nobody else can do it.
Okay, that's a fair point. Samrat, do you want to take that?
I see Uddhav Thackeray's development from Matoshri to Varsha to Matoshri. See, before Sharad Pawar meeting him yesterday, he was saying he was a typical Shiv Sena. He was in typical Shiv Sena scenario. It was an emotional appeal that I will leave Matoshri and everything. All of a sudden, after meeting Sharad Pawar, Ajit Pawar, Jayant Patil, and Prafulla Patel, he immediately conducted a meeting as a chief minister. So he want to give. I doubt that. Okay, definitely doubt that after Sharad Pawar's advice, he started that. Okay, I am CM. I had given up Varsha, but not the chief ministership. So after Sharad Pawar's meeting, he conducted a meeting with all the IAS officers and issued a lot of press notes and press releases how the government is working. So I doubt that Sharad Pawar must have advised him that you should continue as a chief minister, because nobody, not even party rebels, had removed you as a chief minister. So that is the first point. Second, they at the same point, Shiv Sena, Sanjay Raut, and all others started that they created doubt among the people of rebels. So they said that on legal front, this rebel group will definitely lose. So and third front, they started on.
So do you think they'll survive? Do you think they'll survive? Do you think the Eknath Shinde faction, which is also calling itself the Balasaheb faction, will also splinter again? Samrat?
I doubt, because this is the 5th day and nobody has come back again, and the number is swelling. So today they have showed 39 signatures. So I doubt that it will happen soon. They will be waiting. Maharashtra's assembly session will start on 18 July, the same day presidential election is due. So they will be waiting for more than 2 weeks now, I think.
And I think, and that's a good point, that other than 2 MLAs, Kailash Patel and Nitin Deshmukh, Tejas, who have come back, we haven't seen any more returnees, which has been the calculation that they have made now by citing all these legal sort of rules. It's showing the legal rule book. Tejas? Tejas is
on a very sticky wicket. And I think he needs to save his party first. Government probably is already gone. And whatever the legal scenario will throw up, I think the wiser thing to do, given thinking about the party 10, 20 years down the line, is to somehow make up with the BJP, because I feel they both need each other. Of course, big point, of course, remains that the BJP has to stop wanting to, completely, as even Sanjay was saying, remove the Shiv Sena from the map of Maharashtra. That is not going to happen. They have a separate identity for themselves. The Thackeray's are going to be around. So this going on, this cat and mouse every 4 or 5 years happening, I think they should just let sense prevail. Better sense prevail.
Sanjay?
Barkha, in my opinion, there's one point that we have to look at when Uddhav Thackeray has been talking about Hindutva. And if you please observe his speeches, he took special care to tell the media that his Hindutva was not going to be the lynching, violent, hate, bulldozer politics of the BJP.
But at the same time, Shiv Sena was arguing about who had brought down the Babri Masjid. So now to suddenly recast Shiv Sena's Hindutva is also a bit, slightly disingenuous.
That's what I'm saying. It's very facile to dismiss it, but till a week to 10 days ago, even before this entire drama exploded, Uddhav has been consciously distancing himself from the BJP is a hardline, ugly, ideological and animosity created all over the country. Because, at some point, listen, let's be honest, all of us today believe that the BJP is politically very astute because whatever they do is working electorally. But things can change. And I do believe that he was taking his own political gamble. The second point, I do feel that even today, when the disqualification notice has been sent to 16 MLAs and not any other, it is also the confidence of the faction here in Mumbai that everyone else is subject to a negotiation. And therefore, the
Of
longer
course.
the people stay in Guwahati, I can tell you, actually the rebel camp becomes weaker.
Okay, that's a counterintuitive way of looking at it. But let's bring in Yashwant as a closing remark. Is this now a long, protracted situation that ends up not necessarily on the floor, but straight in court? Like, what do you see happening? Because clearly no resignations are happening. Both sides have dug their heels in. The BJP is in the background watching. It's not going to do anything overtly immediately. Yashwant?
Well, Barkha, the legality and the bureaucratic part of this this entire ladai, that is a very small term thing. That may go this way, that way, whatever, that doesn't matter. What I see in a long-term way, Barkha, Honorable Balasaheb used to say a very classical udbodhan that I don't believe in Lokshahi, I believe in Thokshahi. So that Thokshahi is the ground zero of Mumbai. What I see, Barkha, that Thokshahi is evaporated from the Shiv Sena's strength outside Mumbai. So where the contest is between NCP Congress on one side and other side, the BJP is now going to be the default other side. In rest of the Maharashtra, the contest is going to be NCP or the Congress versus NCP Congress versus the BJP. I can sense a kind of a repolarization of the anti-Congress, anti-NCP vote completely in favor of the BJP, with winnable candidates now lining up for the BJP ticket rather than wherever the Shiv Sena pockets were outside Mumbai. And classically speaking, Barkha, the core territory of Mumbai, Congress and NCP are just absent there. The real fight in core territory of Mumbai is BJP versus Shiv Sena.
Yeah.
There is no Congress, no NCP over there. So it's kind of a very weird struggle. Please try to understand. As I said, the two Maharashtras are going to chart their own political territory. And the long and short of it, that outside Maharashtra, I can very well sense that it is going to get bipolar between BJP and the Congress alliance. Within the Mumbai region, it is going to be BJP versus the Shiv Sena. And the next Mumbai local elections, probably that is going to carve out what the next possible thing is going to be. But right now, this is where the things stand. Legally speaking, this might very well turn out the typical way where we have seen the Ram Vilas Paswan's party thing happen in the center. Legally, that might go to happen, but that is not the real politics. Political juice is something else which we'll see in near future.
Yes, and the Indian political league definitely outpacing all the sort of cricket cliffhangers, in my opinion. And yes, I think this is now headed for, as they say, the slog overs. Let's see what happens. Thank you very much, Tejas, Sanjay, Yashwant, Samrat, and Shantanu. Pleasure learning from all of you. Really fascinating conversation, and we'll have all of you back very soon. Have a great evening. Take care. Bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.